Hello and welcome to this video. Now joining me is my client Corey Beckwith, real estate developer and soon to be boutique wellness retreat and hospitality expert. Thank you so much, Corey, for
Thank you
being
as
with me.
well. Yes, ma'am. Thank you as well. Nice to be here with you, Sona.
So, Corey, tell us about you.
Well, Corey Beckwith is my name. Originally from New Jersey, United States. I born and raised. I am a real estate developer for the past 22 years now. I started coming to, let's say, Ghana, West Africa since 2007, but frequently since 2020. I decided to get into the hospitality industry, starting here in Ghana, West Africa. Simple as that.
And what drew you to buy this land?
Well, yes, it is a piece of land. I discovered this land in 2020. I was I went there on a quest to look for land, with my three other brothers, and I think I had different reasons on why I wanted the land than they did, and it was just funny how it happened. I say the universe, God, however you want to relate to the most high or that higher frequency. I say the most high brought me to this land, um, and had it that I come to this land to view it for the first time by myself. Every day when I was here with my brothers in 2020, every day we were looking at different pieces of land together. And then we went to this restaurant, which is nearby the land that I have. And I mentioned to the owner, who was also someone from the diaspora, who owned this restaurant. It's in a city called Prom Prom, which is the greater Accra region of Ghana. And I mentioned to him with my brothers there at the table, I said, we're here looking for some beachfront property. Do you know of anyone who's selling it? And he said, yeah, you know what? I do know someone who's selling his two plots of land. That was the first part of the 2 acres that I have. And he made a phone call, and the guy came immediately with the blueprint plans of the land and what they call it, a site plan of the land. And he said, I can show it to you today. And my younger brother said, is it possible we can go tomorrow? Because my brother's been promised to take me to the beach since we've been here. We haven't been. Clearly, he didn't have any vision in mind other than to just enjoy the beach, is what I had other, things in my mind and heart that I wanted to do. So that day it didn't happen. So the next day, so we did make plans for me to come there at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day. However, my brothers didn't want to come with me. So I went myself. I left like 6 o'clock in the morning to get there at 8, traffic and whatever. And I was there and I saw it. And it was something that I felt standing on that land by myself, alone, no distractions, no one saying, hey, we can put this here, we can put that there. It was just me, my thoughts, the energy of the land, the energy of that community alone. And I said, this is it. This is it. It was just something that I felt. I just felt at that moment that I had to be here. And that's kind of what drew me to the land. It was just the energy of it at the time, the frequency, the ocean, the community, the fact that I was just there by myself, the way God set that up, the Most High set it up, however you want to relate, set that up for me to be there by myself. And I knew it at that moment.
And were you always clear what you wanted to do with that land, that
Not
moment?
at all. Not at all. Not at all. You know, well, let me correct that. I thought I was clear at that time because again, it was just two plots of land, 100 by 200. And I said, you know what? Because of my background, I've been plant-based, vegan, vegetarian for the past 17 years now. So naturally, me being in real estate development, me being plant-based, I said, I can combine the two worlds and do something here right on the beach. So the original plan was for me to develop what they call an outdoor food court, right? So it was going to be like 8 to 10 restaurants, and every restaurant within the food court was going to be vegan, and everybody from around the world was going to come to this one and only outdoor vegan food court on the beach in Ghana, West Africa. But that was a short-lived goal that I had in mind. I said, you know what? Maybe now is not the time to have 10 restaurants uh, or 8 to 10 restaurants in Ghana in one location, trying to get the community to convert from eating meat to eating plant-based with 10 restaurants being in their face at one time. So I said that maybe this is not a good idea. So no, that was not the original idea at all.
And once you got the land,
Yes.
what steps did you start taking? Because it was a journey in of itself. And who did you start speaking to?
Well, it's amazing how it happened. How it just I don't know. Now looking back at how I discovered the land, the ideas that came when I, decided to purchase the land to now, I'm now convinced that it's a calling on my life, right? To do this. So once I decided to purchase the land, it took me about a year or so ago to basically pay for it all, right? And because I was on payments, and thankfully the landowner was trustworthy and didn't run away with the money, and I was able to make the payments, and it took about a year or so ago because I don't know how God looked at my bank account and my resources around me and thought I was the one for this calling. I really don't, but when you're called to do something, you just walk the way and the way appears, right? Right. So
Absolutely.
that's what happened. I said yes to the calling. I said yes to the mission. I said yes to the vision. And things just started happening, and people started coming into my life. Said, listen, okay, now that you have this land, you need to register it right away. Because in Ghana, the first thing you get when you purchase land is something that's called an indenture. But it's always best to take it out of the indenture stage and get your land completely registered in your name, barcoded, and everything. So that's what I did. I got those 2 plots of land barcoded and registered, or put it in the process of getting registered. But then I said, you know what? I can do something bigger here. And I said, I've been doing real estate development for past 22 years or so. At that time, 20 years ago. I've been doing it for 20 years now. And there's a long story to my journey on why I wanted to do a wellness resort. But I said, I've been vegan for the past, I guess at that time, 15 years or so, whatever that time was. And I said, let's do something big here. Let's do a hotel, you know? I said, go big or go home. So I said,
Absolutely.
let's do a freaking hotel. And I said, that's it. See what I mean? But that's how excited I was when that idea came to my mind. I said, but I need more land. So I contacted a hotel owner nearby. And I said, do you know the person who owns the land next to me? Because he was introduced to me before. And he said, yeah, I own it. So we went through the piece. I said, are you willing to sell it? He said, what are you looking to put there? I said, I'm looking to put a hotel. And I think it would be great for the community because right now you're like one of the only 2 hotels in sight. I think, I said, I sold them on the vision. I said, I'm looking to do a wellness hotel. I think if we can create a community where people know that they can come to this area and get a nice hotel, whether they're going to yours or they're coming to mine, I think this would be great for the community and for the both of us. He said, I've been sitting on the land for a long time, and he liked the idea of what it is I was looking to do. He said, I'll sell it to you. He sold me the land.
It's
Again,
meant to be.
again, looking at my bank account, not knowing how I was going to do it. I went for it. Put me on payment plans, and I paid for it. Paid it off. Got the land registered, and now I had an acre of land, right? And the next thing I said, you know what? I need more land. And fast forwarding, not making the story longer than it should be, I was able to get 2 acres of land beachfront to build the dream. And it's yeah, those are the steps that I took to acquire the land to build the dream of designing and developing a wellness resort.
And when did it start feeling overwhelming? You know, at first you're in that excitement stage, you're acquiring that land, things are flowing. But when did it start getting kind of overwhelming, or people you were speaking to, it's some things weren't quite right because you want that retreat, but there were things, the obstacles along the way.
It became overwhelming the time I decided, the moment I decided to design anything. The moment, well, here's the thing. I'm used to doing business in New Jersey, United States. I know how to do real estate there like the back of my hand. I know what to expect when I purchase a piece of property that I'm developing, the land. I know what to expect there. Do not come to Ghana with those same practices, ways of doing business in mind. Completely different. So that threw me for a loop. Just not knowing what to expect in a different country, on a different continent, different culture, different ways of practicing, right? On how to ways of doing business. So it became overwhelming from there, you know, because especially in the community that I'm in, you have chiefs, you have family heads involved. This land has been in their families for hundreds, thousands of years or whatever, generations. This land goes back, and in Ghana, everything is you're not owning the land for the most part. There are some areas where you can, but for the most part, you're not owning the land. You're leasing it because the idea is we don't own the land, God owns the land, right? And this family was in charge of this land. So therefore, it must come back to that family that runs and controls the land in that area. So that was an eye opener for me, right? Um, and then in certain areas in Ghana, you have what they call land guards. These are people who are protecting the land for the chiefs or family head. They didn't know who I was. Here I am, this American guy walking on this land now. So now I see people coming around with machetes and stuff, asking, "What are you doing here?" So now I have to pull out my book bag and pull out the paperwork and say, "I now own this land." So now they're making a phone call to the chief. Say, "This Black American guy say he owns this land." The chief forgot to tell him that I own the land. He said, "Oh yeah, he's okay." So again, a shocker in the way of doing things here in my area of Ghana. Different areas do things in a different way, but this is how they were doing it in the area that I'm in. That registering the company, the business in Ghana, just just learning the way of doing things again in another country on another continent was just different.
And then you also hired, you know, you started building on it. You got the works going. I mean, you went full in. So you had
Hmm.
your own designer, your own team. So you were clear what you wanted to build, and how did
Right.
that process go along?
Um, Again, just walking the way and hoping the way appears. I contacted an architect who was from Ghana, but also living in America with me. And not too far from me either. So that was great. So we were able to meet once in a while and go over architectural plans and then discuss ideas. However, I never designed a hotel, let alone a wellness hotel. He never designed a hotel, let alone a wellness hotel, but he's a great architect when it comes to residential and things alike. So naturally, if myself or himself never designed a hotel before, what are you going to design? What you're used to staying in. So you were used to staying in Marriott's, Hilton's, Sheraton's, but it wasn't wellness, right? It wasn't my idea of wellness. It was very traditional when we were about to launch the project a little over a year ago. It was very traditional in its look and feel. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars getting to that point. And it's all relative. But for me, again, looking at my bank account, not knowing how I was going to get there in the first place, it was a freaking a lot, you know, So, and then we got to that point where we were about to launch, and I said, you know what? This isn't it. This isn't it. You need to scratch the entire project. And when I tell you I wanted to go bridge shopping and just jump off one, thankfully I didn't. But I said I knew it was right to pivot and just change direction. And we decided to scratch that project, and that's when I decided to look for consultants who can help me along this journey. And this is when I discovered you. I started looking at no, I discovered you on a podcast. I think I may have typed in wellness resorts or something. And you could just type in words and everything. And I found you on a podcast, and I started listening to you. Then you talked about your book, and I bought your book. And I said, I'm gonna go a little. I'm gonna take an extra step. I'm gonna be bold and reach out to her. And I reached out to you, and in my own words, it was help. I need help. And that's how you and I connected a little over a year ago and started working with each other from there.
And what help were you hoping to get at that point?
At that point, I wanted help on designing a wellness resort the right way, and not just having a spa in a corner off somewhere. I wanted the entire ecosystem of that resort to look and feel like wellness. And this is what I was looking to accomplish. And I knew once I read your book that he's the one I need to contact to help me. And that's what I did.
So, what were you feeling at that point? When you reached out for that help, first, you had that excitement, you purchased the land, you purchased the other land, things were just flowing. Then you got to that kind of overwhelming phase where overwhelming in the sense that you were certainly learning new things about this very different location and a very different way of doing business. You made a few decisions, get an architect on board, fantastic
Mhm.
architect. And then you come to realize, okay, we're both brilliant at what we do, but neither of us know hospitality or wellness. So we need this help. We need to reach this person's. What were you feeling? What then? After that advancement. This is 2 or 3 years after you bought your land. What were you feeling then at this stage?
At this stage was in life you look for those little wins. The little wins allow you to believe that the big wins can happen, right? That little
Absolutely.
win for me was designing that original concept that I didn't launch, but I knew I can do it. Like the 3D renderings were done. Like I knew I can do it. I just needed to add a piece to this puzzle, which was finding a wellness professional as yourself. But at that time, I was a little nervous in contacting you because I've never done this before. And I was able to see your track record. I was like, here I am, never done wellness before. Sometimes we have our little hangups in our head. I have broken English, and stuff like that. And I say, I've never done wellness. I've never done wellness hotel before. And I'm like, is she going to work with me? So I was a little nervous. This is how I was feeling at that time. And then when I finally got a chance to have that first Zoom with you, you didn't say yes or no. You were looking to see if I was a good fit for what it is you're doing. And then and if what I'm doing resonate with what it is you are currently doing. And I'm not even sure if it was that first phone call you said yes, you would work with me. Maybe it was the second, but I was feeling a little nervous and hoping that you would consider working with me.
And once we started working together, the first stage, and I was taking you through the essence model, um, we worked on your values, right? So you're someone who set up a very successful business in the United States. You've bought this land. You also built, I mean, you did all the master plan for a hotel there, and you just knew that it was not what you wanted. So you're astute and you bring a lot to the table, and you have also led your well-being life, for a substantial number of years. So you've had that change. You know the value of living well, living true to your purpose. So you already bring a lot to the table. So when we
Mhm.
first worked on that gyroscope and we started working on your values, what clarity did that bring for you?
Oh my goodness. It was everything I needed. I didn't, going back to the first concept, it never dawned to me to tap into my true core values. What it is, what is it that I'm about? How do I see the world? How do I see myself? I never knew to ask those questions, ask myself those questions, which was very important in how we designed or how we're designing the resort. What are the core values of the community that I'm developing in? How do I see that community being once my resort is there? Am I enhancing it? Am I regenerating it? These are all questions that were asked during that gyroscope that allowed what I knew, what was in me, and what it is I wanted to do to flourish and come out through the concept and through the design.
And what started making sense for you? When we started working on the gyroscope, what started making sense for you?
Hmm. It started making sense for me that so many things. I mean, what you want to narrow the question
Can
down a
you
little
give
bit?
an example of what became easier, what became clearer, what you went deeper into for yourself in your process?
Mhm.
In kind of, let's say, you're peeling an onion, right? Each layer after each layer, um, is an
Yeah,
example of something that you had that penny drop moment.
that I started building the confidence that I can truly create spaces of healing for people, you know, through what it is I've been through in life when it comes to my own wellness journey. Being able to talk about it with you and articulate how I was feeling about it and what led me to wanting to do a wellness resort in the first place. So it started making sense that what I'm doing is right. What I'm doing is needed, and the timing is right to do it. And where I'm doing it, the location is right and needed and welcome. And this vision was given to me for a reason. You asking me all of those questions in that gyroscope allowed me to understand that and understand why I'm doing this. Yeah. Did I answer that properly?
You answered it perfectly,
Okay.
Corey.
Okay. Okay.
And now looking back, how important was this first phase, this expectation where we've created that gyroscope in your process, in your journey as that landowner, becoming that wellness boutique hotelier?
It was very important because I would not be thinking regeneration. I was thinking about it, but not knowing how to implement it. All of this was in my heart, but you were here, you were put here to bring it out of me. So, but I wouldn't know how to implement those things. Now we do. We have a full plan on how to add regeneration to the resort, right? I wouldn't know how to have wellness be a part of the entire ecosystem of the resort. And again, knowing what my core values are and knowing what it is I wanted to see the guests feel when they walk into the resort or they come up or they drive up to the resort or even when they first see the resort online. You bringing out what it is I'm looking to accomplish allowed us to create that in the concept and design. So yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone who is stuck in that initial phase, when they're researching, trying to find the answers? So basically, you 15 months ago or, 18 months ago.
Yeah. Do not try to do it alone because sometimes we may have it in our hearts and minds what we want to do. But if we're not an expert in the area of seeing that thing come to fruition, it's best that you get consultants or a mentor or someone who has walked the talk, walk the walk, however you want to say it, in what it is or the industry that you're looking to be in my case, hospitality. Get you some mentors, get you some experts in your field. Because where you think you may be saving money by doing it yourself, you're not, because an expert can help you alleviate a lot of mistakes and also help you bring out those ideas that you have in your heart and mind because they're actually doing it. So that's one thing that I would advise anyone is to get the help, get the mentors, get the consultants that you need because what you're looking to do is great, but you don't know how great it can actually be unless you have people in your corner showing you how great it can be because they walk the path before you with companies who are doing the same thing or similar to what it is you're doing. So it just makes sense to get yourself some mentors to help you along the way. 100%. Don't try to do it yourself if you've never done it before.
That's excellent, Corey. Thank you so much. That wraps up our first day on basically, where it all started. Is there
Right.
anything else you'd like to add?
Um, no, thank you for your time. Thank you for choosing to take this gentleman from not knowing what I was doing to very soon opening up my first wellness boutique style resort and trusting and believing that what it is I wanted to do, the world needed to see. The world needs to see. So thank you.
It's been an absolute honor to guide you in this process. So the honor is all mine. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thank you as well. Bye bye.